Previously on X-Men, the podcast that looks at X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. I'm Hilary.
I'm Nick.
And today we've got a character spotlight.
Yes, I'm flattered that you are having me on a character spotlight because the last character spotlight you did nearly broke your mind.
What was it? I don't even remember.
It was the Sentinels.
Oh my gosh.
You hated it so much.
It was fine. No. It was just a lot of Sentinel facts.
As a listener of this podcast, I was like, oh, she doesn't like talking about Sentinels for this long.
Listen. Honestly, you're here because the character that we're doing is Iceman.
I love Iceman.
And you love Iceman.
I do.
So I figured bring in some love.
Yes. Oh, okay. So that's the tea. You don't love Iceman? That's
I don't love Iceman. I don't dislike Iceman. I think he's fine.
I feel like Iceman holds a really weird place in the X-Men pantheon. I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this, but I feel like maybe it's partially because I was introduced to Iceman through Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
That is why.
Okay.
That is the reason.
I feel like in most of the things that I've read with Iceman, he's always sort of like a former X-Man. And I've certainly read X-Men stories with Iceman, but it always kind of seems like, oh yeah, Iceman. He used to be in the X-Men. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, there are characters like Scarlet Witch who have like their origin in the X-Men kind of world. Yeah. And then go off and do other things. And you don't really necessarily continue to think of them as X-Men characters. Yeah. Depending on, like where you come into the character, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think Iceman always seems like he's an X-Man to me. Like he doesn't seem like he's ever not that. And like what you said, him being like he's always like a former X-Man or whatever. So like either he's an X-Man actively or he's being referred to as the guy who used to be in the X-Men.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's always like an integral part of his character.
I guess part of what I'm thinking about is when you look at like pop culture and you look at like the world beyond comics, Iceman, though, was in the Fox movies, of course, but I don't really feel like he's ever fully back into the fold where it's like, let's do an Iceman thing. Like, he's one episode of the animated series? He's not really a core member of the team in X-Men Evolution. He just, outside of stuff that's like, we're going to do a throwback to the original team, Iceman is rarely like a top-tier X-Men.
Yeah, I know. All of those things that you're saying are true, but like my root of X-Men is the animated series. Yeah. And I still consider Iceman a critical, X-Man character.
All right.
So I don't know. I guess I don't know why, but
I guess in my mind he just never. I feel like at some point or another, all of the other. Well, you know what? That's not true because I feel like Angel maybe occupies sort of a similar space.
Yeah, that's
true. Where he's frequently X-Men adjacent or frequently former
Well, maybe
X-Men.
it's just about them being original members, and it just sort of, sticks with them.
Yeah, I guess when I say that, I'm thinking of like. Beast, Jean, and Scott are always kind of like you always kind of come back to those people and not necessarily.
I think that's because they have the through line.
Yeah.
Like they're like you if you list those characters, the ones that have kind of like the main focus are, Scott and Jean. Yeah. And Beast. Right. Because he's got his whole thing where he turns blue. It probably has to do with the role that they have in the team, because like Scott is the leader.
Yeah, he's kind of like the golden boy.
And Hank kind of becomes like the sciencey guy. Yeah. That's not really how he starts, but like that's he locks that in. Yeah. Jean is the girl one.
Sure.
So
you got to have that girl one. Yeah.
She sticks. But like, Bobby and Warren, they're just sort of like the
guys.
The people. Yeah, you know what I mean? They don't have like a role. They're just team members.
Yeah, I guess I just think, when we get into Iceman's history here, you'll see that he does go out and do other things, but I think Beast is a really good example of finding sort of a life after X-Men. When you and Eric talked to Steve Englehart, how he was kind of, after the X-Men kind of collapsed the first round, he was the one kind of bringing him back, and he gave Beast sort of a spotlight role, and then he pulled him into the Avengers. And Beast's run in the Avengers was a long time, and Beast spent many years being very solidly an Avenger and not an X-Men. But even so, eventually, like the pull of the X-Men, he's back in there, and you think of him synonymously with the X-Men. So I just feel like Iceman and also Angel have this weird sort of like they've matriculated from the X-Men and are just like adjacent for the next 60 years.
Yeah.
You know? And that's unusual.
It's got to be the storytelling, you know? Yeah. Like, I mean, in the decades that the X-Men have been around, and like what you're saying with Beast going into the Avengers, I mean, like they all just sort of like have trajectories, and the writers just take them in different directions. And I think, you know, part of it is just where they end up taking them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Should we dive into some of the history?
Yeah, so you're the Iceman guy.
Well,
so
I don't know about all that.
So why don't you give us some facts?
Okay. Well, he first appeared in X-Men, Uncanny X-Men #1 in September of 1963, created by my darling favorite Jack Kirby.
He's really more like a snow man.
He is like a pudgy little snowman in the initials.
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird vibe.
He has this thing when, first of all,
okay,
I went back to these first two issues just like to kind of like freshen my memory. First of all, Xavier is like a weird, like boot camp guy. I don't know. He's just like, X-Men, you have 15 seconds to get to my office from wherever you are. No excuses. Okay. Iceman, give yourself to Merit. No, he's just like, it's intense. But anyway, in one of these situations, they're going to go off on some mission, and they're all getting their costumes on.
Okay.
And you get to see all of the various, like, intricate ways that everybody has to get their costumes on. And Bobby is just like, haha, you guys are taking forever. I just have to ice up and put on these boots.
They're booties. Let's be clear. They're booties.
He's right. That is all he needs to do.
Yeah.
I guess he's wearing his regular clothes just under the snow.
I think so, under the snow. Yeah. Why snow?
Yeah, I don't know.
It is weird. Yeah, and it lasts for a while. It lasts
like eventually
longer than you
he's
think
just
it's going to.
he ices up. He's like an ice person.
Yeah.
I don't get it, because he's like the youngest.
Yeah.
And that's like a point.
Yeah.
That he's like this kid. So I don't know if it's supposed to be kind of like endearing.
Right.
But I don't know.
Well, I guess you kind of assume, given the timeline and everything, that it's sort of chasing like a Human Torch kind of mindset, you know? And so maybe they thought, I don't know, maybe when Kirby's drawing these, he wanted him to have more of maybe that's more interesting than just like a sheen of ice.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, you're a big Kirby guy. Like, I guess, does he not? No, because he does a lot of space stuff. Yeah, so, like, sleek would be a thing.
It would be, and I think also, like, I would expect, like, points, like icicles and things, not snow. So I'm not really sure.
Weird.
I don't know what that's about. But anyway, created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. He got his first shot as a solo series in 1984, written by J.M. DeMatteis, which you and Eric also interviewed.
We did, yeah.
About
he was cool.
that. And that is a weird, which, you know, J.M. DeMatteis, right there, weird. But that
not weird. It's
trippy.
Like trippy. I feel like it has to be like specifically that, because it's not just like kooky or like juggling or something.
J.M. DeMatteis, I think, is an incredibly thoughtful writer, and I think his lens into things is to find the thing that's unique and interesting to him and just follow that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think it works tremendously well. I don't know how much it works in that Iceman miniseries.
I forgot that was what we talked to him about.
It's unusual. It's unusual, and I think particularly because at that time, Iceman would have been most well known to people from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
See, this is so funny to me that this is what until I met you, had never heard of this show.
Oh, okay.
Because I only cared about the X-Men.
Well,
like, I wasn't a Marvel fan when I was a kid. I was an X-Men fan. And so, yeah, like, I wouldn't have cared about the Spider-Man show.
But I think people would have. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think in 1984, if you see an Iceman comic, you're going to assume Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Huh.
And so the fact that it does nothing with that, and in fact is a very, like, dark, afterlife-y, existential kind of story, would have been a real, like, head-scratcher for people at the time, I think. So, yeah, there's that one. We had one in the 2000s by Andy Lanning and Dan Abnett, art by Carl Kerschel. That one, I have read it. It is, I feel like even though it's an Iceman series, it's not a great use of Iceman. I don't really feel like the definitive Iceman story is out there. And I would love to hear, like, if your listeners have the Iceman story, that is the definitive one. I want to read it, so they should send it to you on social media because I want to read it. There's a 3-volume series that started. Well, actually, it's 2 series. It's like a 12-issue series and a 5-issue series. But a 3-volume series that came out in 2017, written by Cinna Grace with art by Alessandro Vitti and Nathan Stockman. This series is post All New X-Men, where younger Bobby comes out as gay and older Bobby sort of acknowledges that in himself, and that series explores the change in the character based on that dynamic. Mm-hmm. Good intentions, a little bit clunky. That's my have you read that one?
Yeah, I started that one. I liked some of the character stuff. It sort of highlighted for me how much I'm just sort of like whatever with Iceman. So like leaning that heavy into how's Iceman doing in his life? I just was sort of a little bit like, I don't have a lot of emotional investment in this character.
Well, it really doesn't ever feel like an X-Men book, I don't think. And you even have like Sinisters in it and stuff, but it just, I don't know.
I think that's fine. And like, there are other characters that I would like to just watch fritter away an afternoon. Yeah. I just don't really connect with him.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
he's his whole character is like the flippant guy. Yeah. The guy who like zips in on his little ice slide and has a one-liner. And like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like you get a lot of like character stuff with him to latch on to. Yeah. Which is weird because he's one of the ones that you kind of get more backstory for because you have the whole thing with his family.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I guess I don't really...
Well, and he comes in the early Uncanny stuff. He's 16. Like he is young.
Yeah.
So...
Well, I mean, you can't even really look at the older stuff for like character stuff because it's just so like, hey there, you. Yeah. But...
I guess it just feels like there'd be more. That's what I'm saying. It feels like this would be a character that you really delve into, and I don't know that you ever quite get it.
Well, maybe the writers just sort of have a similar feeling about him as everybody else. They're just like, whatever.
Iceman. He's Iceman stuff. Let's talk about some subsequent teams because he did go off and join some other teams. The first one, and maybe the most noteworthy, one of my personal favorites is Champions.
That's what the 2017 plays with.
The Champions?
Yeah, you didn't pick up on that?
No, I guess I didn't really get
that. What? Those characters, Black Widow, Hercules, Ghost Rider, Angel, are in the 2017.
Oh, really? I read it when it first came out. So.
Oh, my gosh. Yes. Oh, okay. It's all about him going, I think he goes with a West Coast somewhere.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, I don't know, like I haven't read the stuff leading into it, so I guess I don't know. I don't know, like, if he's just now finished with the Champions, like, if that's what it's supposed to be like. Yeah. But, yeah, it's him, and he goes out there and is, like, hanging out. I think it's because Black Widow just died.
Oh, okay.
And they're, like, going to a bar.
Yes, okay. You're bringing some stuff back to me. Okay.
Celebrating her life or whatever.
Okay.
And then they sort of, like, restart the Champions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I need to go reread it because I've read the Champions like cohesively more recently.
Yeah. And like all of that I liked.
Yeah.
I liked that run. I did like it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm working through it in my mind right now.
Well, because sometimes what happens, I feel like when we have these conversations, I'm like, wait a minute, was that actually?
Because like I liked the stuff because it's old Iceman and young Iceman from the past.
Yes.
The time traveling thing.
Yeah.
And I liked their dynamic, sort of like a sibling thing.
Right, yeah,
and
it's kind of an unusual situation, yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe what happened is that I got into it. Like, I started it being like, I don't care about Iceman. And then I just sort of liked it. Oh. But it still wasn't like, now I need more Iceman. Right. It was just sort of like, that was
a little pleasant little diversion. Well, the Champions, the original run lasted from 1975 to about 1978. And it is, the people you mentioned are exactly the lineup. It's Iceman, it's Angel, Black Widow, Hercules, Ghost Rider. And it's such a weird team.
That's very weird.
Like, it's just not a cohesive team at all. And it never is. Like, it just, in that run, it never quite finds its footing as a team because those characters are just not complementary. They don't make sense. But what's interesting about it is this is sort of concurrent with like Giant Size and all that, where X-Men is kind of back, and Bobby and Warren are kind of like, yeah, I mean, like Scott and the new team, I don't really feel like that's for me. Like that's just, I don't fit with the new crew of the X-Men, and so like we're off doing our thing.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like chumming around over here while Beast is in the Avengers, and they're sort of dealing with, like, here are the X-Men on this great new trajectory. Beast is a freaking Avenger, and we're just like, what are we doing? And so then they hook up with the new champions. So a little beyond that, once that ends in 1983, he joins Beast and Angel to form the New Defenders, and that's with Moondragon, Gargoyle, and Valkyrie. So another weird team. And then finally in 86, this is probably the most noteworthy, like, post-X-Men, X-Men adjacent team that Iceman's ever on, and that's X-Factor. And the original X-Factor, most famously written by Peter David, reunites the original team of Angel, Iceman, Jean, Scott, and Beast. And their whole thing is, we're going to pretend like we're like mutant eradicators. So if you have a mutant problem, if you have a mutant pest, call an X-Factor and we'll come take them out. But really they're just rescuing them.
Which is funny because they're very famous.
Right.
As the original X-Men team.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess enough time has passed that the story has changed enough.
I guess that's true.
that is no longer the case.
Yes. Yeah, so that goes on for quite a while. That goes until 1991. Various writers, various changes to the team and everything like that. But with the Muir Island saga, that's where Iceman kind of comes back into the X-Men fold. And he's there for a while, but still, I just don't really think that he ever quite makes his point.
It must be the comics that solidify him in my mind, because whenever I think about, like, if I picture the Mansion... Yeah. He's there.
He's there.
He's just always there.
All right.
I think he's one of those characters that like if you have someone new coming to the mansion, then like one of the things they'll see is him like zipping along on a nice thing or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's something he's someone that they use to be like, look, it's mutants.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. The last little comic here that I feel like we should talk about is All New X-Men, and we've kind of talked about this already. But in 2012, Brian Michael Bendis launched All New X-Men, and the plot of this is basically the team is so fractured and everything's so insane that Beast brings back the original team. Like,
I hate this.
Do you?
I like the run. Yeah. I like seeing the things that happen after. Yes. He brings them, but it's just so stupid.
It's a big pill to have to swallow to be like, yeah, this is the thing Beast would do.
Right. It's a crazy thing to do. It's a good idea. It's a completely insane thing for someone to do. It's an inconceivable thing for Beast to do.
I mean, he doesn't mean for it to be permanent. He doesn't mean for it to last as long as he wants, but it is really hard to,
reaches into the past. And brings the young X-Men forward. Yeah. To show Scott what he used to be. It's stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
I like the books.
I know I like the books.
And I like that they're really still around. I like the ways that they pop up in other stories and stuff. Yeah. But I cannot get over the initial thing.
I think it's a pretty fair assessment. It is
Beast.
Especially
time travel.
Especially because it's Beast.
Screwing with the timeline.
Yeah.
In such a blatant and ridiculous way.
Why not make it a villain?
Just bring these children to meet their future selves. Yeah. And just put them back.
And it's not a flattering picture. Yeah. I think he was hoping to like wipe memories and things. But anyway, I feel like one of the biggest things to come out of there, again, we've alluded to this in the Iceman series, but the younger Iceman in a modern setting kind of has a comfort level to acknowledge about him that he is gay. And the older original Iceman at first is kind of like, okay, dude, but like, I'm not gay, so I don't know how that works, you know, and he rejects that a little bit. And ultimately, it kind of comes out that he has known this about himself, but like, as a young guy, he was like, it's basically too much for me to handle to be a mutant and deal with the fact that I'm a mutant. To add being gay on top of that, I'm just not going to mess with it. I'm just going to stomp that down. Super healthy. Super healthy. And so, it kind of comes out and he acknowledges this about himself. Ultimately, when the time stuff is over and young Bobby goes back, all of their memories of the present are gone. And that includes him coming out. So it kind of maintains in the timeline that young Bobby is not out as a gay man.
Oh boy, I guess I missed that part.
And older Bobby, present day Bobby, kind of retains both versions of the memories.
But he is later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole thing. I know, it's in time. What are you going to do?
Okay.
Outside of comics, so, oh boy. The first non-comic book appearance of Iceman is in an episode of the Marvel Superheroes, which was in 1966.
Meanwhile.
Pretty much. Oh, no, not even. I mean, Super Friends, I think, was like, high art compared to this Marvel Superheroes show. Because essentially what it was panels from the comics, and they would, like, illustrate arms and stuff like that. It's very low-key. And so this was in an episode of the Submariner segment called Dr. Doomsday, and the X-Men get called in, and you see Iceman, and he has lines, he's voiced, he's sliding around, like you said. But that's where you see him the first time. The most notable of the early appearances would be, say it with me,
Spider-Man and his amazing friends. Which we get a brand new mutant out of, so that's pretty cool.
True, who sticks around, Firestar, yeah. And originally they had wanted it to be Human Torch, but the rights to Human Torch were weird and tangled. That's why you have Herbie in the earlier animated series.
Why does that keep happening?
I don't know. So Firestar was created to kind of fill the void of the Human Torch. But
they give her a whole backstory and everything. She's great.
Yeah. And so, I know you always make fun of me about Spider-Man and his amazing
friends. I don't
friends.
make fun of you. Well, you just feel so strongly about it.
Run the tape back. But, the thing is, this is my introduction to, like, the Marvel Universe, really. I mean, I had VHS tapes of, like, Captain America from the Marvel Superhero Show and everything. But Spider-Man and his amazing friends is, like, Thor, Red Skull, Captain America, Doctor Strange, the X-Men. My first experience with the X-Men is Spider-Man and his amazing friends because it's established that both Iceman and Firestar are former X-Men.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing where Bobby's like, we used to be X-Men.
They show up at some point, don't they?
They do. They're like, so how about we call ourselves the X-Men? Ha ha ha. Like that's a whole thing. But yes, they do. You see origins of both X-Men and Firestar, and that includes the original team, and that all of that happening. So this was a big part of me getting to know the Marvel Universe. And I've never truly been able to, like, distance the Frank Welker voiced Iceman away from comic book Iceman. It's true. And in that, he is, like, jokey and quippy, but they give him more of a bro vibe, I think, to distinguish him from Spider-Man's, like, clever, like, Brainiac comedy. And I think that works really well. Is that true, like, in the original comics?
I would say so. I don't think... I guess I think it's sort of charitable to call him quippy. I guess what I mean is that he's constantly making little remarks. Yeah. But he's not, I don't think as a character, he's a clever character. Yeah. He's more like a class clown kind of character.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. So I love Spider-Man and his amazing friends. And that Iceman to me, like that's probably the reason why I've loved Iceman all these years, because I loved that show so much.
Probably.
So there's a season 2 episode 1, The Origin of Iceman. And that's when you see how he comes to the X-Men, and you see the whole team, you see the Danger Room and all of that kind of stuff. So big X-Men continuity there. Iceman has a sister in that show, Aurora Dante. Her name is Lightwave, and that's her only appearance. She's not in any other comic. She's not in any other movie or whatever. But in this show, Iceman has a sister.
Doesn't he have siblings in the movies?
Oh, does he?
I feel like he does.
You might be right.
Because there's scenes when he's like in his house, and I feel like there's a sibling.
Yeah, I guess they kind of do that. I don't know if that would really count. I don't think it's meant to be Lightwave, but yeah, she's there. She's there, and so it's kind of...
It does kind of ruin his whole thing to have, like, another mutant in his family.
Yes, and there's a thing, even in Spider-Man and his amazing friends, they toss a little distance in there, and they make her like a half-sister who you learned about later, or something like that. Okay. So there is a little distance there, but yes, he's got a sister there. Dennis Akiyama voices Iceman in Cold Comfort, a season 3 episode of the X-Men the Animated Series, which you and Eric have not gotten to yet.
Not yet.
But that's his only appearance.
It's coming up.
Outside, I think there's some cameos, but like that's the only, just that one-off episode.
That's so funny.
It's bizarre. In X-Men Evolution, he's more part of the New Mutants, voiced by Andrew Francis.
In season 2, I should remember.
Yeah, he pops up later. I read that he was, who's the original character in there? Was he just called Spike?
Spike, yeah. Okay. Spike is...
Yeah, originally they were planning that to be Iceman, and then for whatever reason they made this new character, and Iceman kind of got used differently. So Iceman, I think, shows up more later on, but again, not like, look, it's a core member of the X-Men.
Yeah.
It's more like the leader of the New Mutants.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Film, which we've talked about, Sean Ashmore plays the role in the original trilogy, plus Days of Future Past. And depending
do you think sometimes he switched out with
Aaron Ashmore?
With Aaron Ashmore,
absolutely, I
like
do.
the Olsen twins when they were babies.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think you'd be able to tell?
Maybe. What an interesting test. We should see. He's in the original trilogy and Days of Future Past, and his fate is very different.
He needed to take a nap.
Yes.
So his brother came in and did those.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why he's just a little bit different. He's got a little bit of a vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does the scenes where he's Mystique.
Oh. See, that would be funny. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is he dies in one cut of Days of Future Past and not in the other. So.
Interesting.
You can kind of see
which one do you know in
like.
The Rogue Cut? What happens?
I think he dies in the Rogue Cut.
Because the Rogue Cut I like.
I can't remember.
Better.
It's been a while since I've seen this. I prefer the Rogue Cut as well. But anyway, he's there. He also
Eric prefers the other one. I feel like as the podcast we need to.
That's true. He always has, even from day one. He just didn't like it. And I think to Eric's point, the Days of Future Past original cut is a better action movie.
Yeah, it's a better self-contained. This is not the topic.
No, I know, but it's true. But it's a tighter movie.
The original movie is appropriately cut for being a movie.
Yes.
In a theater that people go and see.
Yes.
The Rogue Cut is infinitely, in my opinion, better as part of a broader series.
True. Well, there's so many specific parallels to the original movie. Like the whole
thematic parallels, character parallels.
Well,
it's just
you have
tight.
a whole thing in the original movie where Magneto is going through and destroying everything to kidnap Rogue.
Yeah.
And in the Days of Future Past Rogue Cut, the reverse.
Yeah.
He's going through destroying things
Lots
to
of
save her.
It's
and
cool.
I feel like that's just so crucial.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to go either way with which version of it is your favorite.
Yeah.
Because I think both of them are better than the other for different reasons.
Right. True.
I just think my reasons are better.
You're entitled to your opinion, yeah, and I do share it. I do prefer the Rogue Cut. Because Rogue is basically not in the. This is not the topic.
No, we're gonna go back to Iceman.
We are going to. The only thing I wanted to say about Sean Ashmore is that he voices Iceman in Superhero Squad show.
Superhero Squad. He
Hero
does.
Up. Yeah, he does.
That's fun.
Yeah, I love when they do that. I love when that happens. So that's in a nutshell. There's so many more deep things to get into. There's a cool. Late in the run of Astonishing X-Men, there's a really cool Iceman story where he kind of hulks out. Lots of good Iceman stuff over the course of the franchise, but I guess I'm just kind of curious in looking at all this. Does it change your opinion of Iceman? Where do you see him fitting into the grand scheme of things of the X-Men story?
I mean, I guess when I think about Iceman casually, then
as you do,
as one does,
yes,
when one has an X-Men podcast,
yes,
I don't get it very much because he has that sort of element to him, that bro element.
Yeah.
I just, bro's not my jam.
Right.
But, when you really are thinking about it, he's got a lot of progression, and now he's got, you talked about him hulking out. It made me think about how he's making little avatars now and things that work for him and stuff, and they kind of do things with him, and that's interesting, and his whole family background is really interesting, and
there is a lot there, and I think because I've read interviews with creators and things, and a lot of times Iceman is listed as an Omega level mutant.
Yeah.
Because he can just change the elements around him. You know what I mean? He can just.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge, huge amount of power, and I can't think of a ton of situations where that's really been explored. The Astonishing X-Men one is one that comes to mind.
Yeah. I think I think when it is, it's almost more subtle because it's sort of part of his whole personality, I guess. Because he's cocky, but also not. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, but he's different from a Deadpool or a Spider-Man. The kind of cockiness that he is a very different.
Yeah.
It's coming from a different place, and
I think it's more his cockiness is more just a regular dude kind of cockiness, not I have this power and I will use it. Mm-hmm. But then his power trajectory is sort of unending.
Yeah. For real, yeah.
He just starts as Snowman.
Yeah.
And then he can sort of just keep doing more
right.
as his character progresses. Yeah. Like, it's just like, I'm going to try this thing, and it works.
Yeah.
And, like, you don't really ever see the end of, like, you don't see the limits of Iceman's power.
No.
And, like, I can't really think of a time when he has tried to do something and not been able to do it.
Or even the way he regenerates. I mean, can he be killed, for example?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if he's in ice mode and he gets blown up, is that the end of it? Because he can certainly regenerate, like, limbs and things.
Yeah.
He's just sort of like, oh, that was crazy. Limb.
Yeah.
You know. So there's a lot there. I guess it would take me a while to list Iceman as an X-Men. And I love Iceman, but I think
that blows my mind.
Really?
That just blows my mind.
I guess I would maybe think of the animated series lineup before I would get to Iceman.
And it seems like I would too, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, Iceman locked in for me as an X-Man. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's there from the start. He's an original, so that does make sense. I have always loved Iceman. I'll continue to love Iceman. I really like it when I'm reading a run or reading an X-Men story or something and he pops up. Like, I'm never disappointed to see Iceman. I'm always like, yes, an Iceman story. Let's do it. And I honestly don't remember the Cold Comfort episode of the X-Men the Animated Series. I don't remember him showing up in that.
I don't either. We're going to get up to it pretty soon.
Yeah,
so
I'm interested to watch that.
Well, I think you've given me a new appreciation for Iceman.
I did it.
Nick. So...
Should we go and watch all of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends?
I don't want to push it.
Hear me out.
Is the thing.
Too much too soon.
Too much too soon.
It's a good note.
Flooding me with...
It's a good note.
I'm backing off.
Okay.
I'm putting up my quills.
Yep, I get it.
Porcupine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing your enthusiasm for Iceman.
And I do have that.
And listen,
I think
that I am probably in the minority with my lack of enthusiasm. Do I have a lack of enthusiasm for basically all characters?
What about Rogue and Gambit?
That's the thing.
Okay.
But, like, is that it?
I feel like no, I don't think so.
I don't know.
Storm?
I feel like
Storm?
I do like Storm. That's true. Why don't we do it? Have we not done a Storm
I don't
spotlight?
think you have. No,
we should do a Storm
have.
spotlight. Yeah. I guess I just feel like we keep doing spotlights, and I keep being like, yeah, they're all right.
Yeah, you do It's like you did Scarlet Witch.
I like Scarlet Witch,
though.
You
haven't done a character spotlight that you liked.
I don't know. Anyway, we did Iceman. It's great.
Yes.
We like him.
Yep.
Well, next time we'll be back to the animated series. Not quite to the Cold Comfort episode yet.
Okay.
We're going to be doing No Mutant is an Island, which is a very familiar title. So probably one that I watched 100 times.
On VHS?
On VHS.
Okay.
And Obsession.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to be doing next time.
Sounds
and for
like
now, we're going to wrap things up.
Let's do it.
Thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. Previously on X-Men is brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. Other shows on the network include 90s Music Got Me Like, This Endorian Life, and 9021 Here We Go. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Previously on X. And please rate, subscribe, or share this show wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.
Bye.